Hey guys, and welcome back to Brexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, we're going to start with a sort of Brexit related story because we're going to start with the story of this 21-year-old Afghan who has been thrown into prison for a life sentence, and I believe it's a minimum of 29 years. And this guy is a asylum seeker, a migrant asylum seeker. And you have to say, well, it turns out that this guy is I believe either wanted or convicted of drug dealing in Italy, and he's come over here. He said he was 18. He come over here. He said at the time he said he was I think 15 years old, or might have even been younger. But at the time he was actually 18. And obviously you're wondering how comes, the databases, our databases didn't pick this up because, in Norway, he had been fingerprinted and I believe not allowed into Norway. And obviously he's come through France. And he's come over here and said he was a minor, so he's been put into schools with, all of this, right? Is the thing what the far right and the right wing have always told us is the situation, right? So this must be a real blessing for them, right? But they, what they need to do is look in the mirror and wonder whose fault this is that this could actually happen in this country. Right. So now obviously they've put him into a school. So now obviously he's interfering with like 13-year-old girls and all that in school. So obviously he's probably raped a few of them and all that type of thing. He's probably beaten up, because obviously he's 18. So he's going into school with like 13, 14 and 15-year-olds. So he's going to be one of the biggest in there. He's probably got a bit, he's probably shaving. Right, so a lot of the girls are going to be, a lot of the girls might be interested in him because obviously he's bigger than all of the other boys, and if you can beat them up as well and all these type of things, and they'll think, well, he's 14 or he's 15, right? So he's done, and it also turns out that he's so he was drugged in Italy, fingerprinted obviously in Norway, and it turns out that he murdered two people in Serbia, right? So obviously the Serbians would like to get hold of him too. And you think to yourself, well, hold on a minute. How could this man, right, have passed through all these different places in Europe and not picked up? And I heard one of the presenters on the radio this morning say, well, he gave a different name and a different and a different date of birth. And he said, well, a different name, a different date of birth. Yeah, but you can't change your fingerprints. You can change your name as much as you want, but you can't change your fingerprints. So once they put his fingerprints into our databases, right, immediately they should have said, hold on a minute, this guy, he's wanted in Italy. He's also been turned away from Norway, and also the Serbians would like to speak to him about 2 murders. But unfortunately for us, we're no longer on those databases. You see, we're off of the Interpol databases and all the databases that would have connected this up, right? So when he come over here, and as soon as our immigration officials had fingerprinted him, because that's something that they do standard. So as soon as they done that, right, he could have said, well, actually, my name is Tom Jones, Tupac Shakur, Biggie Smalls. He could have said. And they would have said, well, actually, these fingerprints says that you're such and such, and that person is wanted in Italy and in Serbia. So which one would you like to go to? And he'd be like, well, could you send me to Serbia? And he'd be like, no, we're going sorry, could you send me to Italy? Like, no. We're sending you guys to Serbia. So it turns out that, I don't know, but looks like on this particular type of thing that Brexit could have really worked against the racist motherfucking fools in this country who, if you didn't vote for something so stupid that was going to destroy the infrastructure of the country, right? Plus, right, the access that the police and the immigration services have got. We was telling you about these things. So this guy's come over and he's murdered a young Marine in this country, a guy who's, I think, training to be a Marine in this country. He's come over and he's murdered him. And he's been able to get away with that because this country is no longer on the international databases that it needs to be on to avoid something like this from happening. And welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me. A special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go for all your messages. I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. So we're going to start off in America with it seems that Donald Trump and Joe Biden, have had issues with classified documents. So Mike Pence was like, you know what? Hold my Bible, because I need to get in on some of this shit. So Mike Pence now has been found with some documents, and immediately, right, I don't think Donald Trump, right, has actually worked out that this makes it worse for him, because if you walk down the road and you find a £20 note, crisp, lovely £20 note. Now, you do realise that you should take that £20 note and hand it in. That's, because it's a criminal offence for you not to do that. In Donald Trump's world, right, Donald Trump would be like, no, I'm not handing it in because it's mine. So the police will come along and they'll arrest him and charge him with theft by finding. In Joe Biden's world and Mike Pence's world, right, they will find that £20 and then go and find the closest police station to hand it into. That's what they would do. I didn't say that's what I would do. That's what they would do, right? In Donald Trump's world, Donald Trump, supposed to be the same as them, but he thinks completely different. He thinks, oh no, that's mine. And that's the difference between, his document scandal and their document scandal. There's no, they're just not the same at all, because Donald Trump deliberately took documents, deliberately moved documents, and then turned around and said, well, these are mine and I'm keeping them. And you could even ask him now and he will still say to you, well, those documents was my documents, right? And nobody had the right to take them. And we've had another mass shooting in California. I'm not going to really waste my time on this with the Americans, because you know what? They don't care about the population of the country. They certainly don't care about the children in the country. So I can't see what the point is wasting time speaking about mass shootings in America. But anyway, this was the second one in 3 days in California and the third in 8 days in California. You see, it just gets like monotonous speaking about mass shootings in America, especially when you hear these people and how tough they are. They all they're interested in is keeping hold of their guns, because guns are king. Looks like we're going to be sending tanks to the Ukraine. So the Ukrainians are going to be getting a load of tanks, because they're going to be getting the American tank, which is obviously the Abrams, and then they're going to be getting the leopard tank, which is Durham tank. These are very effective. These are very, very effective pieces of kit. But you've got the with tanks, they need a lot of infrastructure to go around them. Do you know what I mean? You can't just give someone a tank and that's the end of it. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to be able to move them. Remember they run on. A lot of them run on tracks. So you don't really want to be running them too long on tracks, because those tracks wear out pretty quick. And so you have to transport them by train, and then so much infrastructure that because obviously you need an infantry to go with the tanks, right? And then you need you need air support. So either you're going to do that with drones, or you're going to do that with helicopters, right? Because tanks, and especially the one that Britain's sending. I think that's probably the best tank in the world, like the Challenger 2. But the American one, right? The Abrams, that runs on jet fuel. What does that mean? That must mean the thing must fly. Well, I say fly, I don't mean literally, right? But it must make it a lot quicker, because it runs on jet fuel. Right, so and then we'll go back. We'll move over to the UK now, because we've had an 87-year-old woman who has died. I believe she lives in Bury, Manchester. And she's died of hypothermia in her house, where she's obviously refusing to put on the gas and the electric because she hasn't got the money to do it. So she's died of hypothermia in Great Britain in 2023. We have pensioners right, past the stage of pensioners, old, very, an 87-year-old woman has died in her house of hypothermia in the United Kingdom in 2023, while you've got, the chairman of the Tory party avoiding paying taxes on £27 million. Okay, the taxes he was supposed to pay, like something like 4 million, right? And then the HMRC have fined him another £1 million on top. So that's a massive fine, right? That's over. It's a massive, massive, massive fine that they've given him for him not paying. Because I mean, the fine, if your fine is if your fine's less than 30%, then but if it's over 30%. Then they're saying to you, you're a scumbag, right? And that's why we're finding you this much money, right? But you've got that man, right? Pinhead Zippy, right? Thinking it's okay to charge us £6,000 to heat his stables. And we've got 87-year-old women dying in this country through hypothermia. We've got Rishi Sunak's wife, who wants to have the non-dom status so she could save herself over £20 million. These people they're not living in the, and they keep, people keep on saying, oh, well, what, because they're rich, they can't have no compassion. No, clearly because of the way how we've got 87-year-old women dying in their houses, and I guarantee you she's not the only one. They're just probably covering up all the rest. Right now, I heard yesterday that we've got that a lot of the paramedics are turning up to old people's houses, and it's so cold in there that they're just taking those people straight to hospital because it's too cold to leave them in the houses. Right. So that just goes to show you that, these people, when they say, oh no, because they're rich, they don't care. Of course they don't care. They have they don't care at all. They haven't, they have no thoughts about the people in this country. Absolutely none at all. Children are being taught to treat themselves for minor ailments so they can stop being such a burden on the NHS. When I saw that, I just read that part of it, and the burden bit, that's the bit that stuck out to me, that now we're saying to children, you know what, right, yeah, you might just have a common cold, but you're a burden on the NHS, so don't go there. Right, I saw children in the school where they're teaching this, because they were showing this off in the school, and I saw children putting bandages on. I was like, really? Because that's a big bandage. Right now, I can understand for a small cut, a plaster, but most people, they want to make sure that their children are okay, and make sure that the small common cold that they seem like they've got, right, isn't something that could be deadly for them. Most people want to make those type of checks to make sure, because they don't want to take a chance with their children's life. They don't want people to say to them like, take your child home. They're a burden on the NHS. So imagine if they're saying that about children, what they think about old people. Now, why don't they just let so much old people die throughout COVID? And at the moment, we've got an extra 1,000 people a week dying on the NHS. And I'm listening to GMB this morning, and you know something, right? This woman who was on there speaking for the Tories, I was like, this woman has got the cheek to mention Jeremy Corbyn, right? While, right, we've got 1,000 people a week dying in the NHS, and we've got women 87 years old dying of hypothermia. And this woman was saying that that Keir Starmer sat beside Jeremy Corbyn for 4 years. So, yeah. Well, have you seen the state of the country right now? Because I'm pretty sure that Jeremy Corbyn, we wouldn't, Baroness Moan right now wouldn't be £60 million better off. Right? I'm sure that 1,000 people a week wouldn't be dying in the NHS. I don't think that people, elderly people, 87 years old, would be dying in the house of hypothermia. But, just carry on, talking about, if Jeremy Corbyn had been in, it would have been worse. I say, really, I can't see how. there's been a shooting in Hastings. Apparently, this was like some type of this guy was like busting some shots after a car that was driving past. And I was like, oh, but he's been arrested, as you'll be glad to know. And the police have retrieved the firearm. So he's asking for discharging the firearm. He can expect at least 10 or 12 years. Amazon workers, I believe those on strike yesterday after being offered an extra 50p an hour. But you got to remember, Jeff Bezos needs money because the man's got to fly people to the moon like William Shatner. MP Jonathan Gullis believes that migrant children who have been abducted, so it's their own fault because they shouldn't have come to this country in the first place. See, that's how these people really think about black and brown lives. They just, it's a lesser life. Because could you imagine now, let me just think of something. Could you imagine now if the two guys that murdered Lee Rigby, the drummer Lee Rigby, the two guys that murdered him, could you imagine when they were speaking about it in the House of Parliament, if a black or an Asian politician had jumped up and said, it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't a soldier. Could you imagine what would, but this guy, Jonathan, because he knows that he can get away with that in this country. He can jump up and he can say, you know what, he doesn't care, right, about children being abducted so long as they're not white. Because that's what he's saying. And you see, it goes along the same lines as where you see where you got Prince Harry, who will just say to you, yeah, well, you know what, I murdered X amount of people in Afghanistan. And they'll be like, shh, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. We don't want them to know what we're like. We want them to think that the Taliban, they're savages, not us. But that's what these people are like. These lives are lesser. They're not worth anything near where in Jonathan Gullis's mind, they're not worth anything like what a white life is worth. And I just look at that and say, well, that's the reason why you've got someone like Shamima Begum, who they can say, well, oh no, she knew exactly what she was doing when she was groomed online at 13 and 14 years old. She knew exactly what she was doing. But then you say, well, what about the girls from the Rotherham scandal and all these other scandals? What about all those? Oh no, those groomed. The little white girls, those groomed by all these Asian men. They was absolutely groomed. I said, well, but I saw the documentary where one of these girls, I saw her walk out of her house and past her parents to get into a car with a man in his 30s. She's 14 or 15 years old. To get into a car with a man in his 30s, right? And her parents said, where are you going? What are you doing? You're not going. She said, fuck off. I just walked and got into the car and I'm like, oh. Climbing out of windows, like the ones who were in care homes, climbing out of windows to go and meet up with these guys. But no, they are groomed. But Shamima Begum, oh no, she's not groomed. And the only difference is Shamima Begum is a little brown girl. And if because she's a little white girl, they'll be like, oh no, she's groomed. But that's why Jonathan Gullis can jump up in the House of Parliament and say, you know what, it's their fault because they shouldn't have come to this country. Dominic Raab has had 24 bullying complaints. This man is a menace, Dominic Raab. He's an out-and-out menace, right? Imagine that, 24 different complaints about you. He is he's a real bully, right? But he's a boxer, right? That's the thing with Raab. He is, I think he was like a semi-pro boxer. So, you could imagine that he's probably got that type of temperament where if someone wants to, say something, he'll just say, listen, why don't I knock your ass out? And let's talk about some Brexit quickly because I'm already doubled my time on this video, but I didn't do a video yesterday or the day before, I'm sure. So, and we've got, the real Brexit challenges. The real Brexit challenges is to avoid things getting even worse, says the Times. I say, have they seen these clowns that are in power? Have they seen these fools that are in power? Have they seen the damn idiots that are in power? These people couldn't get you out of a paper bag if your life depended on it, right? Yes, he's going to choke. M&S chairman is the latest businessman to hit out at the baffling post-Brexit plans. Because you know why? Because the EU have just said, you know what we're going to do? You need to have separate labelling. The EU they're just pissed at it. Oh, I'm sure they're doing this on purpose, but they said you need to have separate labels between you and Northern Ireland, separate label. So obviously, the the chairman of oh shit, what is his name? I can't remember his name, but he's an ex-Tory. He's an ex-Tory MP. I know that much. But you know, so obviously he runs M&S. So he's saying, well, that's just going to be ruinous to our business. And the EU's like, well, you know what? If you don't like it, you can take your business and go elsewhere. I think they're saying that by their actions. They haven't actually said that, but by their actions, they're just saying, well, you know what? That's what we're doing. If you don't like it, what can we say? Our hands are tied. The EU, seriously, right? Someone needs to say to those people, listen, you do realise we're British. Someone needs to tell them that, because I think they've forgotten. Eurostar trains have been forced to run with empty seats due to Brexit passport rules issues. Right, because you know, I think it takes about 900. I think it takes about 900 passengers on the train, but the trains have been running with about 350 from Britain. There's plenty of people who want to go on them, right? But they can't process the passports quick enough. So, well, I have a solution to this: smaller trains. That's the solution. Smaller, you know, all of this, right? I shouldn't be laughing at none of this because none of this is actually funny. It's not actually funny, but it's hilariously funny. UK bishops are furious at Brexit for making it difficult for them to send their priests into the EU. And who would have thought it? The guys with the big hats. You know, you ever want to piss off someone in a big hat? I've always said that. Kangol. Don't do it, man. You know, the cowboy hat, right? Sombrero. Don't piss off someone in a big hat. And now you've got to piss off all the bishops, right? With your racism, your xenophobia, and your bigotry. And I've got to make my way out of here because I've gone well over on this video. Listen, my friends, I'm bowing out of here. This, my friends, is By Any Means Necessary. I'm DMC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.